Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Does everybody have lunch? You okay? All right. Well, it's a pleasure to welcome you all here today, and this is always a wonderful forum for us to get to know our composers or talk about some incredibly interesting topics always. Maybe the best thing is first just I'll ask each composer to introduce him or herself, and maybe just say a couple words about, I don't know, what's on your mind or where you're from or whatever you feel like saying. So Michael Daugherty is a returning composer.
Michael Daugherty from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I have a piece tonight on the concert.
Cool. Mark?
Yeah, my name is Mark, and I grew up actually in Palo Alto, just over the hill, and so it's fantastic to be here in Santa Cruz with all of you, and Leila Josefowicz is performing my violin concerto next Saturday evening, as well as a solo unaccompanied work for violin. I believe it's in Music in the Mountains.
Right.
Yeah, and so anyways.
And Mark has been here, but not as a composer. He was here doing sound for us 2 years ago?
That's right. 2
summers ago.
Yeah, right, so. Exactly. Yep.
I'm Kevin Putz from New York City. I was teaching in Texas, actually, for about 6 years, and recently decided to make the move of quitting my teaching job and just being a freelance composer living in New York. And Evelyn Glennie is playing my percussion concerto tonight.
Hi, I'm Laura Karpman, and my mic doesn't work, so I'll speak loudly.
It'll work eventually.
Okay, I'm from LA, and I'm glad to be up here in Santa Cruz, falling in love with your city. Can you hear me? Excellent. And I have a piece being done tonight called Transitive Property of Equality.
Hi, my name is Daniel Brewbaker. I'm from New York. I spent the better part of 5 years in Napa Valley, so it sort of feels like coming back. The orchestra's playing a piece that I wrote called Dark Angel next Saturday night.
Hi, I'm Greg Smith, and I'm happy to be back. And Marin is going to premiere a family educational concert work of mine tomorrow. It's a world premiere. It's called The Melodic Life, and it is written and dedicated to Marin.
That's nice. Oh. Come on, get with the program, you other composers. I was thinking that. I do more new music than anybody, and I have the least number of pieces with my name on them. So listen, get busy, people. I think the problem is they all know I'll play them if they're good, so they don't even have to mention me in them. Anyway, let's open it up to questions, or if you don't have a particular direction you're interested in, I'll get things rolling. So, anybody want to? Yes. This is an excellent question. It's about commissions, works that you write for a commission versus works you just write because you absolutely have to write them. I mean, for yourself, I assume. And another part to the question is, do your works differ according to the stipulations of the commission, like how many instruments you can use, how long the piece is? So who's presently working on a commission work? Everybody? Yeah. Probably everybody here. So you guys jump in, whoever's excited. They're very calm so far. Yeah, Kevin, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that I was always inspired to just write, you know, when I'm in the shower or something, but I guess I would say probably most of us just write if we're asked to, and there's, I mean, especially for me, I mean, now that I'm not teaching, I have to make a living, and so everything I write is based on commission, and so I guess I can't really answer the second part of your question. I prefer writing for orchestra. I've gotten much more comfortable with it. I mean, it's funny because in school, it seems that writing for orchestra is considered to be more advanced than writing for, say, a string quartet or a trio or something, but I find it much easier, I guess, because I've gotten used to it. So when I have to write a smaller piece, like a piano trio or something, I find it much more difficult. Everything's very exposed, and you know, everything has to be just right, and where you can get away with a lot with the orchestra, just having a big, beautiful sound, you know. You can write a chord in the strings and it sounds pretty good, you know. Anyway.
But, you know, I should say that it's kind of neat because Kevin and I met, the first time we met, we discussed this piece, this commission for Evelyn Glennie, or this concerto for Evelyn Glennie, because Kevin came to, am I correct, you came to Denver to meet with Evelyn to talk about the idea of writing a concerto. And I'd never met Kevin before, so it must be about 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was really funny. I had gotten this email from Evelyn Glennie that she was interested in my writing her a concerto, and so I think I found a time when she'd be in the States playing, and so I bought a ticket to go to Denver to meet her. And that morning, Marin had heard my second symphony, I guess.
I happened to listen to it before the rehearsal.
So she kind of cruises through the room and said, "Yeah, I'm going to do your second symphony at Cabrillo. See you later." And it was like a great. The trip was worthwhile. It was amazing.
That was good, though. It's funny how that, and we'll get some more from all the other composers, too, but I also think maybe a follow-up question that we can ask after we hear from everybody is about writing for a soloist or a particular conductor, because Michael's piece that we're doing tonight is for 3 conductors, and we're still trying to figure out why he did that. And but maybe first I'll let all the composers be heard from on this question of commission versus just being motivated to write.
Well, I spent my whole life actually responding to commissions, but I do a lot of work in film and television, and I had written a score for a miniseries which they just hated. They just hated the music, and they threw a lot of it out, and I wound up taking that music and for the first time really in a long time spending a lot of months with it, working on it, and creating a new body of work. And so it was an exciting process for me to sort of take something from one genre and work at it in a different genre, and to also take the time to sort of luxuriate working on something that had I didn't know whether it was going to be for a recorded project or live, and I still don't. So that's been a really interesting process for me. It's also wound up affecting a lot of my other work, my film work and my concert work, just working on this particular group of pieces. So it's been great, and it's kind of good to pull back, I think, sometimes out of responding to what people ask of you, whether in commercial or concert music, and take time to work on something that you love and feel is important.
Well, and I think Laura and Greg just share in that they both write a lot of music for kind of for specific media. Greg writes a lot of music for film and writes, I guess somebody told me during the fireworks that we set off last night that you'd written the score for the Disney fireworks, right?
Right. Actually, at the moment, I have 4 of the 5 fireworks shows at the Disney theme parks, which means if you want something to blow up in the air and you need music, I'm your guy.
But so I think for Greg, writing these pieces for the family concerts, this is your 5th one? Is it your 5th or 6th?
It's the 6th.
The 6th piece, and each one is better than the last one, which is amazing.
That's a lot of pressure.
And so there you go. But I think that offers you an opportunity, like Laura, to kind of branch out and do something a little bit different, doesn't it?
It is. It's very refreshing to do these, because on my other work, and I'll see if Laura agrees, there's somebody looking over my shoulder, and there's somebody who's asking for something very specific, and I feel kind of like a short order cook. You know, check the menu, what do you want? Okay, I'll cook that for you.
20 seconds of that.
With the commission or with the concert works I do, even though they have the parameters of a family educational concert piece, I'm the boss, and it's really nice to be that person once in a while.
Yes. So anybody else want to talk about the commissions, or?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think early in my career, I've worked with John Adams for about 17 years now as a sound designer, and with Kronos Quartet for about 11 years. And so I've seen the commission process on all different levels. And some of the best advice John Adams ever gave me was to be patient and to really choose your commissions for the specialness involved with that commission. Like this, the violin concerto that Leela will perform is a 50th wedding anniversary gift, basically. The commissioners are independent donors from Manhattan. And so that connection, I think, with the kind of human connection with the commissioners is very, very important. And so anyways, I've been trying to kind of work more towards kind of, you know, not just grabbing as many commissions as I can, but more specific commissions Another example is right now I'm working on a oratorio for the Phoenix Symphony, and it's a work based in the Navajo creation myth. And so we're adapting one of the Navajo creation stories into a kind of Western orchestra setting with chorus and principal soloists. But what it entails is the outreach to the Navajo community as well as the greater Phoenix community, and it's that part of the commissioning process that's actually been very, very exciting to me, and so really that's kind of where I'm coming from.
And I just want to ask, before we go to another question, I wanted to ask Michael, what motivated you to write this piece for 3 conductors?
Okay. Well, the way it came about is that the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra's conductor, Morris Janssens, it was going to be his last year, and it was his idea, actually, that he wanted to work with his 2 assistant conductors.
Oh, that's nice.
And so he wanted to have somebody write a piece for the 3 conductors. So what happened is they started going down the list of composers, and everybody turned down the commission. That's a terrible idea. They kept going down
That's
the
how
list.
you got it.
And I said, okay. And then for a year, I was in terror. I was frightened because I had no idea what I would do. So I had to think about the piece a long time. Sometimes it's good to take a commission or to take a project that you have no idea what you're going to do, because then you'll grow. When I wrote the percussion concerto for Evelyn Glennie, UFO, that was a great opportunity for me to learn about, all the different kinds of instruments that she can play, inventing instruments, just that whole world. And I think that sound world was brought into the next piece that will be played tonight. So each commission can inform the next one. But what's really important is to take a project that you want to do and that you really want to write the work. There's nothing worse than hearing a composer complain about the commission they've accepted.
Yeah.
I have to write
Bit disingenuous, isn't it? And I'll just say from my point of view, and then Daniel will get you into, that usually there are pretty strict parameters put on commissions, like we want a work of 15 minutes or no longer than this, and here's the instrumentation. I mean, basically, until you get to really big orchestras or people that have a lot of the luxury of having a lot of money and time to program pieces. So generally, I think it's pretty rigorous. But Daniel, did you want to?
Well, I made the same decision that Kevin did about 20 years ago and left teaching at Juilliard to pursue a course as an independent composer. And I feel I've been fortunate to write, I've been asked to write pieces that I would have wanted to write given my druthers. And sometimes also it has expanded what I might have done. For instance, I had a commission from Valery Gergiev for a performance in Russia, and I learned Russian and did it in Russian on the poetry of Pushkin, and another one for Ireland, in which I wrote part of it in the Irish language. And at the moment, I'm writing a cantata for a Midwestern chorus, and I'm writing a Midwestern cantata, which is where I was born and raised.
Learning
so
Midwestern.
Pardon?
You're learning Midwestern,
right? That was my first language, actually,
There you go.
fortunately. And I'm using poetry
Back
of
to your
Carl
roots.
Sandburg, who was an Illinois poet.
Oh, that's nice. That's interesting. Okay, you see, so we can only have 2 questions the whole hour because, but that was excellent. Yes. Well, that's interesting. I've never, I mean, I suppose if you're a soloist, you would get involved in the process of a commission. I have to say that I've never, absolutely never asked to see or hear any work that I've commissioned until they hand me the score. I mean, I think maybe that's because from my point of view, I'm not going to ask someone to write a piece of music that I don't trust and inherently believe in. So, I mean, you never know what you're going to get, really, from my point of view, and you take it, because I think, I mean, just speaking from a conductor's viewpoint, each of these people here is an individual, very similar to an author, that they're writing, of course they're writing different works all the time, but basically they're writing the same piece all the time. I mean, for each individual, it's about their personal journey and their personal questions that they answer. And if, for example, if I ask Kevin to write a piece, I already know what the piece is going to be about, even though I don't. Do you know what I mean? Because I know Kevin, and I kind of know what, and of course, over the years, these things do change. Like if you don't play a piece by a composer for 10 years, and then you come back to them, usually it's different. But I'm telling you, from my point of view, the basic essence of the composers that I love doesn't really change that much. It's the individual person that I fall for. And so, I mean, but that's of course a conductor's viewpoint. They probably disagree entirely with me that everything they write is dramatically different. And you know, I'm not saying it even sounds remotely the same, but the underlying motivation behind the piece, I find, I can find the thread. So, but that's me. You can
Well, I think those are the ideal circumstances, that someone asks you to write a piece because they like what you've done before, and and if you write music that you love still, then it's going to bear resemblance in some way to what you've done before. So, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, have you had experiences where the commissioner wants to sort of micromanage what you do?
No, never
No,
once.
never. Not really, no. I mean, it's when you work with soloists, they must need to share with you what they think, or, I mean, I imagine that's a little bit different, especially if you're doing a percussion concerto. I mean, she can play anything you put in front of her, it becomes an instrument, so that must be hard to actually hone down what you want to use. I imagine, I mean, Michael, we did Michael's piece for Evelyn last time she was here, UFO, and I recorded it for Naxos, was actually nominated for a Grammy even, and so with that piece, I mean, she uses some weird things. I mean, we brought her a few things too, like a brain that you could wind up and it walked around. So there were a lot of toys and stuff. I mean, that was fun. But Kevin, your piece is a little more traditional and contained. I mean, how did you decide on the instrument she'd use?
It was kind of I decided that I couldn't compete with all these other concertos where she's playing lots of different things and moving really quickly among them. I originally was just going to use like have the piece be in two parts and have it be one part for marimba and the other for vibraphone. And then I just started adding more. I actually ended up with 5 instruments, but they're all pitched. So I thought my percussion concerto, you know, what you think is, when you get a commission, is what can I bring to the repertoire that's, you know, different or special or something, you know, that will make it stand out and give it some place and meaning. And so I thought, well, I don't really know a whole lot about drums or rhythm. So, well, I mean, maybe not rhythm, but so I just decided to use all pitched instruments. So that's just the way you know, my piece is going to be about chords and melodies and pitch. So that's how I decided for that reason, actually. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. Go ahead, Phil. Did you hear the questions about the Philip Glass Franz Lanting project we did last weekend? Did most of you were you able to see that? So, and Phyllis's question is, how did I coordinate the score to the pictures? Well, I think if you came Sunday night, it's an appropriate question because I almost hit all of them. Saturday was a little bit off, so I'm sorry. But it was, I did it all by eye because the demo that Philip put together was live performances, so it wasn't a computerized click track, meaning that the pulse varied. So I would put my metronome on and say, oh, this seems to be 80, and then 3 bars later it would be 90. You know, because human beings don't go at an exact steady rate. But what happened, of course, was that the video of Alex Nichols did a beautiful job. Really, it's not editing, it's more video choreography that he did, but he cut to the live performance demo tape. So I had to actually try to figure out, and I only had a few days to figure it out because they didn't finish it until a couple days before. So I had to try to figure out where to move ahead and where to pull back. And then I actually never even had a consecutive, you know, through running video to look at until the first rehearsal when I saw it on the screen. So it was, I mean, it was fun for me because it was a real tour de force to try to figure out how to do that. And by Sunday night, you know, and he cut some things very tight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, in certain movements, the pictures were moving like that. Yeah, it was pretty tricky, but I was happy. There's just one spot that finally, by the last one, I realized we had to rush, and I sort of was talking to the orchestra. I was like, we're going to rush like hell and see if we can catch it, and we caught it. So I was happy with it. So by Sunday night, I had it, and it was over, so it was good. But it was all by eye, you know, and I have to say that I know there's great technology out there now, you know, and they can sync up everything, but I don't know, there's something to me about relying too much on technology that maybe I'm just old-fashioned or something, but even when we did some cartoons here years ago, and those are the hardest thing to coordinate because they have about, probably maybe 100 cuts in 6 minutes, I don't know, maybe even more. I mean, things move really, really fast in cartoons, and I always do them all by eye, and sometimes I totally miss, you know, frying pan, and then there's frying pan, but it's more fun that way, I think, and more about what live music is. So, other questions? Yeah. The question is about writing for percussion. How specific are the composers about, of course, they're very specific about what they should play, what notes they should play, and what rhythms and everything, but maybe the more subtle question is about what mallets they should use, and, you know, because you can use a hard mallet, you can use metal mallets, you can use rubber, I mean, there's every kind of mallet. It's a conductor's dream because I can always say to them, oh, can you use yarn? I mean, you can make up anything, and they have to do it, and they have to say, oh, sure. You want to?
Yeah, I mean, I always specify the, you know, hard, soft yarn and so forth. Yeah, I do.
You specify everything, right?
Yeah, but, you know, there are so many different types of, is this on at all?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is.
You know, Evelyn, of course, probably makes her own mallets. And is that true, Michael? Evelyn probably...
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, she knows what to do. And she's a very sensitive musician, and she can tell from a passage what it demands, you know, as far as the timbre she wants, so...
But don't you think that often when you get in the concert hall, you have to, you know, I think we were talking, Laura changed something in her piece. Jim is playing toms, and I said, oh, it's like too ringy for me in this room, you know, it takes over. So then she had him play with, instead of mallets, use sticks and those kinds of things. So I think some of it is an adjustment for the particular acoustic that you're in. And I often, when I'm on tour with an orchestra, I have to ask the percussion to change, or even the timpani, you know, can you use harder sticks in this acoustic? There's no articulation, or it's too harsh. So I think we adapt, but one has the impression that somehow percussionists are making things up, like during cadenzas and stuff, and really generally they're playing what they should be playing, and it's on the page, isn't it? I mean, generally. Yeah, it's the conductor making it up. Anybody else? Yes, way back there. So how are we coordinating this with the three conductors? Well, the basic relationship underlying the piece, the rhythmic relationship, is a 3 to 5 relationship. So the basic tempo, I'm doing the basic tempo. I actually have the easy part. I'm setting the tempo at 66. So then they have to go at 110. So if you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you divide the beat into 5, and then you take 3, and that equals their beat. Just in case you're ever asked this question on Jeopardy or something, right? And so, right, exactly. So that's how you do. I mean, and we sat and figured. Actually, I didn't figure it out. I told one of the other conductors to figure it out and tell me. That's the great thing about having 3, and but the other conductors. I mean, this is really you have to appreciate this experience though tonight, because you have 3 women conductors on the podiums. I mean, you'll never see this again in your entire life, probably, unless I'm in the middle. And it really, I mean, you have to come just to see, because we couldn't be 3 more different. I mean, ethnically different, but also body type different and personality different. It's very exciting. Both of them are students of mine. And Carolyn Kwan is the assistant conductor here at Cabrillo. She just won the assistant job with the Seattle Symphony. And Jerry Lynn Johnson is based in Philadelphia, and both of them have won a fellowship that I started for women conductors called the Taki Fellowship. So that's how this all came about, and I'm very proud though, and I think it's sort of it's a picture that speaks 1,000 words, I hope. But it's fun, and it's really fun to be able to interact with conductors in a performance, because conducting is a very lonely field. You know, I never see another conductor because they're always off doing something else. So it's really a lot of fun, and I think probably we've gotten into it a little bit more than other people would normally. You know, usually they just go in and do it, but we're really trying to figure it out so it works. Yes. It's a great question. Do you love the music that you write, and are you most in love with the most recent piece, right? Or do you go back and think about, oh, that first piece? So you guys jump in.
I love everything I write. Maybe that's not the right thing to say, but
I know. No, you should.
I really
it's an
do.
Emotional question.
And it's funny because sometimes it gets into your head and also makes you nuts. We were talking to one of the young composers who had her work done yesterday, and she couldn't sleep all night because it kind of runs on, you know, on some sort of weird, I don't know, the calliope. So it was suggested that she sing "Girl from Ipanema" because that apparently cures that. But, you know, I love everything I do, and it's funny because I do a lot of different things that have different purposes, so it takes different parts of my brain. But I think that it's important to be rigorous about what you write, and then to also have a love affair with it.
Come on, you guys jump in.
Well, maybe it's because I'm in California, but I'm thinking of the Crosby, Stills, and Nash. If you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. I think there is something natural about loving the one that you're working on the most, but the piece that Marin is playing, I wrote 3 years ago, and I'm dying to hear it. I'm dying to hear her conduct it.
Oh, that's nice.
And with her energy and her perspective. And so
see, that's something different that you have, though, also because, I think each time a different conductor with a different orchestra does the piece evolves and changes, so that must be, you know, you must then remember certain performances of certain pieces that you like the best, I can imagine. You guys want to chime in, or you?
Yeah, I think, if we didn't love our job, we shouldn't be here, and I think we all love our jobs. That's why we're all sitting here. But I think, one of the great things about composing music is when you do look back on your previous works, they are a snapshot in time. And I think that's, for myself, is the most interesting thing, is that, to understand kind of where I'm coming from emotionally and where I want to go to in the future, not knowing where that is, but at the same time, there's a specific path, I think, each of us find. And so I think those, each of our works are these moments, these pictures that we can refer to, and other people as well. And when you have a large enough catalog, people can start to see the span of this development. And so I think there is love within that, for each of us with all of our works. I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, just real quickly, I agree with what Daniel was saying, that when you're working, whatever you're working on at the moment, you feel the potential for it to be very moving. That like, you improvise on the piano and you think, yeah, this could be really something. Then once it's written, I tend to feel almost nothing for it. I mean, I hope the audience feels something. The people come up to me and they say, like, it was so, and they're really moved by it. And that, I find that I sort of am detached from that. And what I really, I think, get emotional about, like today when we're rehearsing my piece, is how the players really want to do well for me. That it means something to the players, and they you can tell they really want to do well. And that's really moving to me.
Yeah. Well, I think this is an unusual environment, too, where every single musician is, I was worried, we're rehearsing, and we'd already been playing almost an hour and a half. I don't know if you noticed. And and most orchestras, they'd be running for the door already, and the personnel manager would be attacking me with a Doberman by then. But, rules. But the orchestra's like, no, we have to do 2:25, and okay, everybody okay? No, we need this one. We want to do this again. We want to make sure that this is right. And that must be very I can imagine that having people care that much about things is a beautiful thing. Yes. Yes, so how does technology, computers and tape music, electronic music,
And getting their work out to people in, you know, this is a rare opportunity for me to see, so I would normally hear it in records or tapes and all of that. So how do the composers feel about that sort of separation from human?
oh, technology, yeah, non-human stuff? And do you do things just for CD? That's all right. I don't think they make tapes anymore.
It used to be tape.
Used to be tape.
Well, tonight I have live electronics in my piece, so it's a lot of quotes actually from very well-known classical pieces. What I've also done is sample those pieces and manipulated them, and they'll be triggered by a laptop. So the conception was to sort of look upon these very, very well-known pieces of classical music from a different aperture, and also to bring the sense of what can be done with recording and with a sort of sonic manipulation into the concert hall. So that's one of the things that my piece explores, is kind of playing around with those concepts. But it's done actually, since it's triggered from the computer. Marin, who's taking these wonderfully fast tempos with the piece, the computer can move with her, so it's not restricted to having something that's set, that restricts the kind of the movement and the joy and what happens in the moment with an orchestra. So I think that's something that's working out really well.
But do you, I mean, these aren't, no, I mean, it's a good answer. I think that what we're talking about, however you use computers in your composition process and all those things, I mean, I think these are all composers that are very engaged in the live human experience. Do you know what I mean? It's not so much about technology. I found, from my point of view, that, I mean, the technology is just creates what can go wrong. For me, there's always I do a lot of John Adams's music, and he always has like 1,000 synthesizers, and my thing is I will not do one of his pieces unless I have a 12-year-old on site at all times. And they know that here, and I'm like, look, unless, synthesizer king can be available, because these things always break and nobody knows how to work them, and 20 years after you've written for one synthesizer, it doesn't exist anymore, it's outdated. They send you the patch thing. I don't know what a patch is, and the pianist is like, this is what I'm always looking at. I don't know what happened here. So I hate technology, and this is my personal view on it. If it's not easy for the conductor, you shouldn't put it in the piece. But Laura, and yours, it had some glitches, right? Laura, I mean, the only glitches in Laura's piece came from the technology. Yeah. And, even before we started, this was what Erica tells me the other night, before we start the life, a journey, she says to me, all right, I have to say this to you. Now, if for some reason the computers stop, there's nothing we can do. Like, oh, well, that's comforting. She said, look, I just had to say it to you. Meaning, like, I shouldn't stop and start yelling at them to fix it, because they can't. Because it's up in the projectors up there. So I remember, years ago here, my friend Dave Rimless wrote a piece called, it was something about the battle between a computer and the orchestra, and who would win. And of course, in this, for the family concert, in this piece, of course, there's lightning and the power goes out. And so who does win? The orchestra wins in the end. So that's really sort of my motto.
Well, it's true. I was thinking this morning as we were packing up the computer and the several things that we had to bring, that the actual schlep of it, just like moving stuff around, makes it incredibly difficult. But in my piece, we tried to make it as fail-safe as possible. And we had done it before, but frankly, being in a new environment and with things that happen, there are things that come up, and they always will. And I think you bring up a good point, that it's certainly not the simplest way to go.
No, and it works fine until the performance.
Right.
My
piece does work without the electronics,
yes,
so if it doesn't work, it'll be okay.
Were there other questions?
You're all accomplished.
Well, so this is about, the question now is about the Life project, whether, since it was a bit, well, it's the same with any new piece, even if it had been done 6 months before, you know, until you actually present a piece live in the concert hall, I think that it doesn't take on its own voice, and then I think there are opportunities to tweak things and change them and do that sort of thing. I mean, even at this table, I don't have to point people out, but there is one composer who likes to change things. He's probably thinking about what he's going to change right now. He likes to change things all the time, you know, and I always say to him, it's enough now. You know, there's a point where you have to just let it go, because if you're a perfectionist, you could really, this could make you crazy. Whereas I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but I have the feeling that Kevin, when you're done with the piece.
Oh, I thought it was the first one.
Oh,
Thank God. Oh, I'm so relieved. Oh. Who changes her? Oh, okay, I guess that. No, that's not true. No, I'm always revising.
Always
this piece was there's very little done to it because I don't know. I got lucky with this one. Usually the ending's always wrong. Remember last year that piece you did, Rivers Rush, the ending.
Oh, that's right. You changed that like 100 times.
It never feels right to me.
About that.
Well, and yeah, exactly.
I guess you're all the same.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. But really for this one, there were a couple of things where I didn't realize how long it would take Evelyn to move from one instrument to another. And so I actually added some measures of orchestra music to get her from one to the other. But no, I'm always revising like crazy.
Well, and then I think for a project like the Life project, you know, it's not just the music. It's the imagery, and then it's the. I have my 2 cents to put into it, so it gets exponentially more complex. I mean, for me. I thought it was very successful. You know, I want to say that first off, so it's not a matter of criticizing, but I've asked them to look at the last section and to perhaps go back and have more landmark arrivals so that the summation of the piece feels to have more closure. That's what it lacked for me, but that's certainly just my sense of it. Also, the ending, I didn't find it was really that effective. So I've actually suggested the kinds of images that I would like to see at the end to give a perspective of our planet, maybe, and a distance. And then, of course, Philip Glass came and he heard it, and he's like, oh, well, maybe I'll write some more music. And then we started talking about, well, maybe between a couple of the sections, there could be a narrative of some kind. Maybe things could come down and he'd write some underscoring. I mean, it's very hard, though, because sometimes when you tinker with things, there's a point of diminishing return. You know what I mean? It's not that everything's perfected, but I think we will go back and do a few things on that project, just to make it even better than it was, although I think it was very effective. And anybody else? Yes. So the question is about the relationship really between composers and conductors, and if composers prefer working with certain conductors, besides me, of course.
Nobody.
There you go. You're back next year. Sure, I mean, I'm sure that's the case. I mean, look, for a composer, really the conductor is your, it's a lifeline. Because without somebody to champion a composer's music, and I tell my students this all the time, that you know, as young people, you have to find composers that you feel passionately about, because it's a win-win situation. You know, you get to champion new music and bring new ideas to your listeners, and the composers get a forum and someone to give voice to their music. But maybe you guys can speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think there's a long distinguished tradition of composers and conductors working together. Correct me if I'm wrong, Walter and Mahler, Puccini and Toscanini, and it's something that, again, I'd like to mention how this atmosphere is so conducive to that, and it needs to happen because everybody learns from everyone also, and of course we're also composer-conductors. But it really is this, the music making is one task that gets divided between these, between the composer and the conductor, and it needs to be put back together. So it's very important that And there's so much goodwill in this particular community here. It's really wonderful.
Anybody else want to say anything about
Yeah, I think that link it's vital for any artist, both conductor as well as composer. But as a composer, walking back into a concert hall with a music director you've been working with the same orchestra, maybe the following year, there's a really wonderful feeling about that. And it's a feeling of security within your own music. As Marin was speaking earlier about, her choice in composers, that she knows kind of what she's going to be getting herself into in the future with a commissioned piece. It's the same with the composer. They know what they're getting themselves into. Continuing this work with a friend, basically, at that point. And so I think it's very essential. Yeah, absolutely.
I also think then that the composer's relationship with specific audiences too comes into play and is really very, very important. I think many of the composers here who are repeat offenders, feel a connection to the community, and I find that audience members, they have a sense. Usually a composer goes into a community they've never been to, and you're there for 12 hours or something. You hear rehearsal, and then the concert, and people say, "Oh, that was nice," or whatever. But here, people actually, you have perspective on these people's growth and their music, and so you are an informed audience to give them feedback. So I think they appreciate that as well, and that becomes part of their experience too. Or if you go back to the same orchestra, year in, year out, or every couple of years, then you really feel connected. Anybody else? Let's see. Yes, Phil. The question is for Mark, especially because you spent a lot of years doing the sound design. Were you composing during this whole period?
Yeah, actually, one of the benefits of growing up in the Bay Area was I was playing trombone at age 8, and by 12 I started playing guitar because it was way cooler than trombone, and kind of dumped it and got an electric guitar and one of those Columbia House record deals for 100 LPs for a penny, and basically just learned as much music as I could, kind of more of an oral tradition type of thing through rock and roll and pop and jazz, and but what I found was I was always very interested in technology as well. So when I found myself in college, my degrees were all in music composition, and as well as in electroacoustic music, actually here at San Jose State with Alan Strange, who was one of the kind of pioneers of early electroacoustic music. So this kind of balance between technology and music has always been at the forefront. But and a lot of my early music was based only in technology. So because I worked a lot with acoustic music as well as electronic music, I'm now kind of gravitating and moving out of that technology realm with my own music and really focusing on larger orchestra or bigger projects, and sometimes just a solo unaccompanied violin work, which, as Kevin was saying, you could have all these colors in an orchestra, but as soon as you go down to like a trio, I mean, even a solo instrument, it's unbelievably exposed, and you really have to focus on some very, very key musical elements, and so it helps you kind of build your confidence in your own craft. So I found myself, instead of taking a kind of more academic route and along with composing, I decided to work with technology and actually work in the field with active composers and active performers like John Adams and Philip Glass and Steve Reich and Terry Riley, and I mean, just the list goes on, all through John Adams or all through the quartet. So what I found was that experience of just being able to connect with musicians throughout the world, composers throughout the world, just gave me this huge palette of colors. And so when I go to write music, I draw upon all of these experiences. So technology has actually kind of helped support me, really, especially living in the Silicon Valley, You know, I could always do, you know, computer technology work somewhere. But, you know, I was always writing music while I'm on tour. So it's kind of, and actually this is my first month as no longer with Kronos Quartet. So I'm focusing more now on my own writing and not trying to kind of keep that touring, that rigorous tour schedule going, so.
No, we have, is this, Michael Gatonska, who's another composer, just flew in. I guess he's either early or late, but welcome, Michael. I haven't met you yet. Hello. Nice.
Hi.
Hi, nice to have you here. Please have a sandwich. And so, yeah, we have time for a couple more questions. Yes. But I think that I do talk to composers and tell them, you know, to take things, I mean, I wouldn't advise Chris on his career, but young composers especially, to take a few things into consideration. If you're always calling for odd instrumentation like accordion, or, I mean, things that are hard, a lot of electric guitars, it's hard to find those people that read music. I mean, it really is hard. You have to try to be somewhat practical about things. If your orchestra is 120 people, you're going to break the budget. And these, or if you're going to write a concerto, I mean, you know, first of all, it has to be for an instrument that people want to go hear. I mean, it can't be, I don't know, I love the viola, but viola concertos are a hard sell even if you know the composer's name. You know, there are certain things that parameters, and then if it's going to be for someone like Evelyn Glennie, that's fine, but you know, a lot of orchestras that might want to program it may not have an artist of that stature in their budget realm. You see what I mean? So there are all these kinds of things that young composers do need to take into consideration. When I asked Greg always to write these pieces for me, we talked initially, and I said, well, you know, make it really standard instrumentation, because orchestras are going to want to do this for their education concerts. And he took my advice really well, and I think it's proven to have paid off quite a bit, right?
It's absolutely the case, and I've never put a piano, which
Right.
seems like a basic instrument, but that's sort of an extra catch if orchestras want to perform it. So
Or if they don't have room on the stage, the particular stage they're going to, all kinds of weird things.
Lots of things. So I keep it simple and practical, and that was her first advice, and I've carried it through to this day.
I would like to know, as far as titles,
Oh, titles, yeah.
which composers come up with their titles first? For example, I always come up with my titles first, and then I write the piece. What about you? Do you come up with your titles first?
No. Well, but I have to explain why. I use a stream of consciousness technique. So when I'm writing, actually, a lot of the things that end up on paper, in other words, if I need to explain the meaning of those things, it would mean that I have to trace the source of that meaning and the source behind that, and I can't do it. So sometimes it's a mystery to me. And in terms of title, for example, this piece, which will be done here, I don't think it happened, or I thought of it until nearly the end of the piece when, you know, the sort of dynamics of the work had revealed themselves to me. And so I felt that the title just was, again, part of that subconscious process. And I don't, for example, think that that's an accident. And because of that method, you know, I deny the accident, so.
Anybody else? What do you guys do
Yeah,
with your title?
it's usually start with a sketch of a title idea and then firm it up at the end, really. Because by the time you're kind of already done through this journey with your piece, you know, there's a good chance you're kind of off that path a little bit, and you know, at least for myself. So, anyways.
I'm always searching for a title, and I had to change one once because the commissioning organization found it offensive.
What was it?
I'm not saying.
Well, I mean, I'm curious that, you know, that I had a little bit of a dilemma with the Tom Addy's piece that I'm doing at the end of the week, you know, because the text for the piece uses the F word. And it's the piece is, we're going to do it on Saturday night. And I had originally programmed it to do it in the Mission. on Sunday. You know, well, I mean, it's sort of interesting. It was a real dilemma. I mean, Ellen, you know, emailed me. She's like, okay, what are we going to do here? And I moved it, but the text, the subtext of the piece really was very appropriate for the mission, except for the one word. So, I mean, that's so. I mean, that must inform what you do, and I mean, it's such a dramatic choice for a composer to allow that to be in a piece, because your performances are definitely going to be limited if that's what's going to happen. And so, I don't know, there's something about it that is so conscious to me that I respect the piece even more, because he just, that's how what he felt needed to, you know, that was the text he needed to use for this piece. Anyway, that's scary. Now you'll all have to come and hear that piece. But luckily it's sung, so you won't know what they're singing. So maybe just one more question. We'll wrap it up if there is one. Otherwise, we'll... Yes? The experience of collaborating on a piece and having in the rehearsals and having it come to life? Sure. Maybe the composers speak to that more. I kind of ignore them a little bit, I think.
Oh, no. Marin's the best, one of the best. You know, you can say anything you want at any time, and it never seems to offend her. So you know, I
got a list in my dressing room.
Yeah, exactly. Like last year, Marin did an imitation of me at one of these. I think there was a similar question at this talk last year. She says I kind of go like. So, you know, I'm a little sheepish because you get used to just not being able to say anything. I mean, some conductors just don't want to hear it, and so this is nice. This is luxurious here. Yeah.
Well, I think we all have. I mean, the composers who haven't worked with me yet don't know, but I'm pretty open to things. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, you know, because there is a certain standard etiquette. And the etiquette is that the composer needs to speak to the conductor, who then speaks to the orchestra. But for those of you who have attended some rehearsals, there are a few composers that we could all name. Even if everyone on this panel hasn't witnessed it, they probably know who those composers are, who just sort of push me off the podium and just take over no matter what. And you know, I think they're always risking their lives when they do that. Because if I have a good dynamic with my orchestra, then the orchestra, it's like a mob mentality, you know, they come to your rescue. And so I'm basically always trying to protect my orchestra from those composers, because there's a, you know, and it's more, we're not really talking about the creative process. This is more about the dynamic of the rehearsals and how it all works, and those sorts of things. And you know, with those people, I always try to say, let's do notes. We'll do notes after the, you know, trying to just move it along as quickly as possible. But I think it's always a growth process. What's so interesting to me is that I can sometimes hear a piece and not really be crazy about it. This has happened to me here many, many times, but something in it gets under my skin, and so I'll program it here. And then with this orchestra and in this environment, the piece comes to life, and I find something profound, really profound about the piece that was speaking to me even through not such a great performance, or I couldn't see it in the score. So.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that I've loved so much this week is to see what Marin does with something and how it takes on a life beyond even what I had conceived of it. And that when she takes her own view of the thing, it winds up becoming something new yet again. And I think for all of us, probably that is a truly exciting moment in our lives when you know, your child somehow grows up, goes off to college, you know, and Marin's the great, I won't carry this on anymore, but it's for me, that's been the real thrill, and also just the wonderful atmosphere of the musicians who are so willing to do anything, but just watch something go yet another direction from what my original conception was, and so I so appreciate that.
That's great, and I think this week was especially, the schedule this week was great because we had all the young conductors and the 3 young composers too, and watching them work together, you know, for me there's something really special, again, because conductors don't tend to interact very much, or at least not in a nice way, and to see the a group of conductors with their composer, you know, sort of huddled over, trying to figure out how to make the best piece they can, and this kind of collaboration. I mean, that's what this place is all about. It's all about this experience that you can participate to whatever degree you so feel inclined. Even as listeners, too, you make a huge difference. And the fact that all of our concerts are selling out now, I mean, I can't tell you what this means to us. We really appreciate your support, and I feel kind of emotional. It means a lot to all of us here, and I think it means a lot in terms of all of our lives, yours too, that we are engaged in creating, you know, art from the human spirit together. And without you, it doesn't come to life, you as our listeners, and we don't give you enough credit for that. And I just want to say thank you, and thank you to all my composers.